So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today, and thank you, Attila, for the kind introduction. Yes, well, I'm coming from the European Biogas Association that celebrates this year its 10th anniversary. It was founded in 2009, and in these 10 years we have created a platform that enables exchange of information and data between biogas stakeholders in Europe. We have at the moment more than 120 direct members, and through our national associations, member associations, we reach around 7,000 stakeholders in Europe. So we do have as well companies like GRDF and national associations among our members. So Attila already mentioned the amount of biomethane plants in Europe. This is the statistical update from our latest statistical report from last year with statistics from 2017. So here you see on the left-hand side the number of biomethane plants in Europe. At the end of 2017 we had 540, but the number is growing very, very quickly. And I can reveal we are now working on the 2018 edition that for example, France has significantly increased its importance among biomethane producers in Europe. So it has become the second producer after Germany in terms of the number of plants in practice at the moment. So with its 76 plants, it overtook Sweden last year, and is now the second highest number. But when looking at on the right-hand side and the per capita figures, Sweden is probably still leading. So when you compare the number of biomethane plants to the number of inhabitants. So at the moment we have approximately 18 billion cubic meters of biogas, raw biogas, and 2 billion cubic meters of biomethane produced in Europe. So it's not very much yet, but it will hopefully increase very quickly over the next years. So now coming to my actual topic today, the major policy trends in Europe. This is probably the topic that we are all talking most about in Brussels at the moment. So the Green Deal. The new President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has promised to propose a European Green Deal in the first 100 days that she's in the office. The mandate will start in a couple of weeks on the 1st of December. And this idea is to lay down the European law and everything what we need to do in order to reach climate neutrality by 2050 and to make Europe a global leader in the climate change mitigation. So as you can see, we need to achieve clean, reliable and affordable energy. We need to make a transition to a circular economy. We need to have a zero pollution Europe in 2050, sustainable transport and so on. And when Mr. Timmermans, the Vice President of the European Commission, tweeted this graph some weeks ago, maybe 1 month ago, and we were looking at this, we actually thought that biogas can contribute to biomethane to quite many of these objectives. And we are very happy that the Commission is finally working across silos and working across policy fields and sectors to see the importance of comprehensive policies. Together with our Gas for Climate Consortium, this is a consortium of mainly TSOs, together with some biogas associations like EBA, but also the Italian Biogas Association. We have already calculated the benefits of using renewable gases in Europe on the way to zero emissions by 2050. So the combination of renewable electricity and renewable gas is the most optimal way to reach the climate neutrality. And if you deploy renewable gases along renewable electricity, the total annual savings that you can reach are up to 217 billion euros. So it's already quite an amount, and this already proves that it is also a cost-effective solution to use renewable gases along the renewable electricity. And the potential that we calculated for hydrogen, so there's also some blue hydrogen in there, so not only renewable hydrogen on the way to 2050, but it only includes renewable methane. So renewable methane, around 100 billion cubic meters, which is really a big leap from at current situation where we have 2 billion cubic meters. And altogether, we should have decarbonized gases of 270 billion cubic meters in 2050. And this only with sustainable production of biomethane. But biogas is, of course, much more than just energy. Biogas can benefit societies at large, farmers, energy consumers, the state level, etc. And biogas can help to make, for example, agriculture or transport fuels more sustainable. It can help to recycle nutrients and improve, for example, air quality in the cities. That is a major problem in Europe. So indeed, we think that there is a big role for biogas to play in these major objectives that the Green Deal will put forward. This is one of the good examples, the biogas done right model from Italy. The idea is to use land more resource efficiently, using the primary crop for food purposes and the secondary crop for biogas. So there is no food versus fuel competition here, but you can rotate the crops, which also helps the soil. And then when you use the secondary crops together with animal manure for biogas production, you also recycle the nutrients back to the soil and the digestate that you can use for fertilizing purposes. It helps also to reduce the costs that the farmers must put on mineral fertilizers. So it's a kind of circular model in the farms. Then coming to some more concrete pieces of European legislation. First, the clean energy package. It includes several pieces of different legislations. They were all finalized at the end of last year or early this year. So now the implementation at the national level is ongoing. And this includes, for example, the Renewable Energy Directive, the RED2, that, among other elements, includes also the targets for renewable energy, for energy efficiency, and for greenhouse gas emission savings. Now, it might be that these targets need to be reopened in order to be aligned with the Green Deal, because Mrs. von der Leyen has already said that we might need to increase the greenhouse gas emissions targets from 40% to 50 or 55%. And some green voices from the European Parliament are requiring even higher targets, up to 65. So the targets will probably need to be revised. And then there are also some other open questions still left. For example, how it deals with hydrogen, renewable hydrogen, or power to methane. So we know that electricity is having very favorable policies at the European level at the moment. Well, there is an electric hype, and everybody's talking about electricity. So also in the RED2, it is counted towards multiple times towards the targets, whereas there is no multiple counting for hydrogen in the transport sector. So it's I think this must be put in line in the implementation. Also, of course, the guarantees of origin, a big question which will be dealt with more broadly later in this session. But it will. There are already guarantees of origin schemes at the national level, but in order to support the European biomethane market, which we will need in order to have really a functional renewable gas market in Europe, they must also support, the guarantees of origin must support this market to take place. So how to make the European guarantees of origin, how to introduce them in a harmonized way when there are already existing models in place in Europe. Then there is a governance regulation that take care that the member states are actually contributing to these targets that are in the RED2, so these are European targets. And they, for example, include the national energy and climate action plans that all member states must prepare, and they shall outline their national efforts towards the targets in 2030 and have also a longer-term view towards 2050. The draft plans were submitted earlier this year, and the Commission has already reviewed them, noticing that there is actually a gap. So with these plans that were submitted, we would not reach the European targets, for example, the renewable energy target of 32% in 2030. There is a little gap, but we have talked to member state representatives, and at least France has already promised to increase its ambition. So now they are in the moment of finalizing the plans, and we will see the final plans at the end of this year. Also, biogas is having a prominent role in some of the plans, whereas some other plans, like for example, unfortunately, the German national plan doesn't really take biogas into account at all, even though Germany is the biggest producer of biogas in Europe. Then the decarbonization package, or that was earlier called the gas package. We don't know what it will be at the end. The timing is also still a question mark. Earlier we talked about early 2020, but now it will be rather late 2020 or 2021 even. And we know that the German Council presidency in the second half of 2020 will deal very intensively with this topic, so most likely it is either preparation or then they are already working on the Commission proposal. But as we had in the clean energy package, we had already electricity market design, and now the focus will be on gas. We need to also decarbonize the gas sector in order to reach the carbon neutrality by 2050. But it will also take a look into sector coupling and sector integration, how electricity and gas can complement each other in the best way, and also how to integrate, how to make an integrative model across all different sectors. So we very much welcome these initiatives. Most likely, when looking at the studies that have come out recently from the Commission that they have ordered from consultancies on hydrogen, biomethane and so on. Also the legislation will take a stand on the role, potential and costs of renewable gases. What will be the market design? There are still also some remaining technical barriers, for example in the cross-border trading of biomethane. Still some minor technical barriers, mainly political barriers, but this must be overcome in order to have a European gas market. And we hope that there will be some sort of targets for renewable gases in order to really encourage all countries across Europe to make full benefit of renewable gases. So we know that there, like countries like France, there is no problem have a national target of 10%. And there are other countries like Denmark who are doing very well, but there is a huge potential in countries like Poland. But we see that they might need to be pushed a little bit by the EU to do something. Or maybe this target will be included in the RED if it is opened next year. So then there are, of course, a bunch of other ongoing policies we are dealing with in Brussels. Carbon price, we need to increase the carbon price to make renewable energies, renewable gas also cost competitive. We see also at the national level that those countries where there is, for example, the CO2 tax in place, it is usually quite favorable then also to development of biomethane. So with an increased price of fossil fuels, you could also compete finally on the level playing field. But it's, we know that the Commission will be looking into the Energy Taxation Directive and will be also extending the scope of the ETS. So, for example, extending it to the maritime sector. Then the state aid guidelines. These are the guidelines that indicate a design for national support schemes for renewable energies, including biogas. So this is of course important, and we hope that it will be slowly harmonized. In order to, of course, it's a difficult work to do, as most countries want to stick to their own models, and we also don't know at the moment what is the best model. But somehow, step by step, we would need a harmonization of the schemes, because this is one of the market barriers at the moment to make a European market. Different schemes in different countries. There are almost as many schemes as there are countries. Then the directive on alternative fuels infrastructure. This is mostly about the filling stations for alternative fuels, including gas. So this, at the moment, we have this directive in place, but it doesn't deliver as the Commission would like it to do. So they might need to, they are considering, and they might need to introduce binding targets to make this faster. Emission calculation in CO2 standards. We have the CO2 standards now for heavy duty and light duty vehicles, but they very much favor at the moment electric vehicles, as they take only the tailpipe emissions into account. As you know, there are 0 tailpipe emissions in electricity. But in order to have really the life cycle approach and to have all the emissions included, you need to have a well-to-wheel. So this would be also very, very good thing to be introduced from our point of view, because with biomethane you can reach even negative emissions. Then the sustainable finance. The EU is at the moment examining the possibility and how to integrate sustainability topics into their financial policy framework, so that in the future only sort of or so-called sustainable technologies would be financed. And we have some. I mean, in principle, we welcome, of course, this idea. It's a good thing to have, but at the moment, the implementation or the proposal that the Commission is putting forward, we have some question marks, because it seems that, for example, there is a very strong lobby against gas infrastructure, saying that it is not sustainable, it should not be included among the technologies in sustainable finance. This doesn't make sense, and they're there are stakeholders who are very skeptical about increasing, the possibilities to increase the renewables in the gas grid. Then finally, the common agricultural policy after 2020. So biogas, we hear this from DG Agriculture. Biogas production should be integrated in circular and sustainable farming business models. So we very much welcome this. And one interesting aspect is that member states will need to prepare common agricultural policy plans. So as in the energy and climate plans, they have also agricultural plans. And these agricultural plans must take the climate and energy action plans into account. So hope that there will be a more integrated approach, and that biogas will benefit from this integration of agriculture and energy. So finally, my conclusions. We of course see that renewable gases must be a key element of the Green Deal. They are very vital to meet some of the key objectives, like energy security, circular economy, sustainable employment, and so on. With the right support, like increased carbon price, renewable gases can be competitive and mature by 2030. And we can reach the significant volumes by 2050. As I said, 270 billion cubic meters sustainable production. Then the policies must be aligned. So when we support renewable gas production and biomethane production, we must also support the infrastructure. So the gas grid, for example. So the gas grid is not only for the fossil gas, but it will be increasingly also for the renewable gas. There must be a comprehensive approach to sustainability. So what we say, always take into account life cycle emissions in all sectors. Then resource efficiency, circularity, sustainability, of course, keywords in all policies. And finally, we need a holistic policy approach. So the policies that are aligned, that support each other. And I think personally that the Commission is now finally on the right way to to introduce some holistic, good policies, and we very much look forward to what the new Commission will propose. So, thank you.